Victoria, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I am fine. It's good to get you on and actually get speaking to you.
Thank you for
Um,
having me.
so whereabouts are you from, Victoria?
Victoria, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I am fine. It's good to
Oh,
get
just
you
there's
on
a
and
bit of
actually
a overlap. Just
speaking
can
to
you
you.
can you turn off the
So whereabouts are you from, Victoria?
hold
Victoria,
on,
how are
give us
you?
2 seconds,
Good,
guys.
how are you?
I am fine.
If you can turn off your side, I think you've got an extra window open.
I am fine. If you can turn off your side, I think you've got an extra window open.
Let's
I am fine.
let's see if
If
it
you can
fixes it.
turn off your side, I think you've got an extra window open. I am fine.
That might have fixed it. Let's see.
If you can turn off your side, I think
It
you've got an
must there
extra
must be
window open.
another stream. You must have another stream on. I've only got two. I've got StreamYard and YouTube up, but there's no that's it now. That's it now. Great.
Sorry.
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord that was so that puts my heart in my mouth when that happens, you know. So right. Uh Victoria, whereabouts are you from then in America?
Georgia.
Georgia. Okay, Georgia. And what's Georgia like? Is it hot? Is it cold?
Right now it's about 50.
Right, right. That's 50 degrees over here. Is that centigrade? No, I'm only joking. So, right, Victoria, you've got a bit of a story to tell, and we talked for a wee while, but you're gonna be telling your story here live tonight. So let's start off from the beginning. What was your childhood like?
It was tough. It put me where I am now. I thank God I had the love of my wonderful, amazing grandparents that were my everything. My grandparents taught me who I wanted to be, how I wanted to be, and unfortunately they are not here anymore. But I was raised by two narcissistic people, and when you're growing up in that environment, you look towards your birth parents to guide you. Your, like, for instance, your dad is supposed to be your rock. He's supposed to be your iron mountain. He's supposed to teach you what is acceptable and not acceptable from a partner as you get older. Or in some cases, if you go and become, homosexual, then your mother is supposed to show you, what is not acceptable. Um, Either way, you're supposed to be influenced by your parents. And my parents were not your typical parents. When you are outside of the walls of the house, because I don't consider it a home, they had a very different persona and facade. When the doors were closed and everybody was inside, they were quite different. I grew up where everything that happened in the family was my fault, even if I wasn't there. I could do no right. I longed to make them proud of me. I wanted desperately to hear them say, "I'm proud of you," and I never got that. I was an executive with a corporation by the age of 20, and I
Wow.
still never got, "I'm proud of you." I was captain of our debate team in school, and I never got, "I'm proud of you." It was very hard. And then I had a younger sibling who came about close to a decade after I. And the hardest part of watching all that, honestly, was the relationship that my egg donor had with him, because they were inseparable. She did everything with him. She took him everywhere. And at that point, I'm very confused as to why here's this woman who has never done a mother-daughter thing with me, never been affectionate, never been a loving mother, and she literally carries him on her hip to the bathroom. She tucks him in every night. She drove him to school every single day and picked him up because he was being bullied because he didn't have any friends. But the only friend he ever said he needed was his mom. And so he didn't want to make friends. And he grew up in that, I guess, he was very much the golden child. He could do no wrong. It didn't matter what it was. He couldn't do anything wrong. So he, it was really hard because as I got older, I watched him. He never really grew up to be a man, which I don't necessarily hold it against him because he wasn't given that opportunity to learn how to do things. His mom to this day makes his bank deposits for him. He can't hang a shower curtain. He has an enormous amount of tattoos on him that represent a hero, if you will, a cartoon hero. And he wears it everywhere he goes, and he identifies himself as that person or that character, if you will. They go on vacation together every year, and she and him talk probably 3-4 times a day, text all day long. He and I always knew he had such hope for him. He didn't start dating until his late 30s. My heart breaks for him. I've always tried to be close, but he has pushed me away. And I've learned after many, many decades of therapy that it's because my egg donor is like a puppeteer and she is holding the strings. She would tell him.
What's that phrase? What's that phrase? Egg donor? Did you say that?
An egg donor. I call
Right.
her the egg donor and him the
Yeah.
sperm donor because that's
Oh, right. Okay. Yes. 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 I get it now. It seems like it's a bit abusive to even treat him like that. Just as abusive as the way they're narcissistic towards you. It's just as bad to treat a man like that and a young boy like that because you're not really setting them up for life. So there's an imbalance there.
Absolutely. And he does not know how to change a tire. If he got in another car accident, he called mommy first. He has no relationship with his father. There is no child that has a relationship with the siblings and no relationship with both parents. None of us, which is quite hard. And he ends up getting a car accident. He calls his mom. She does everything for him. He cannot function without her, literally. And it breaks my heart because I know he's incredibly smart. He wants nothing to do with me. I knew that he was homosexual when he was little, and I always supported it. The family, not so much. I told him as long as he was with someone that didn't put their hands on him and disrespect him, I was okay with it. And he didn't come out till probably a few years ago that I know of. And he now has his first relationship and he's in his late 30s. And the person he's with is an older person, doesn't have the best record, has a quite lengthy criminal record. And, you know, if he's happy, great, as long as there's no violence on him. But he and I have no contact. We don't speak. I wish him the best. I do.
It's like he's going through his teenage years in his 30s.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. He comes over to my egg donor's house and gets their dog and takes the dog for the weekends, like joint custody. And it's a tiny little poodle. So it's kind of sad.
Yeah.
But like I said, my heart breaks for him, even though we don't get along. I've tried to get along with him, but he only hears what his mom says. So, and the same thing, like my sperm donor, they don't have a relationship. You know, growing up, once I hit my teenage years, I became the excuse as to why my sperm donor father could go out and see other women. And he was going somewhere with me. So my egg donor wouldn't go. And next thing you know, there'd be another woman.
So you say your sperm donor is your father and the egg donor is your mother?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I think mom and dad is such an honorable term that people earn it, and they don't earn it. So
right. Okay.
It to me, it's just kind of saying you're my egg and sperm donor. I mean, like I said, my therapist for years said, do not call them your mom and dad. And when I'm like, this is what my dad did. And she's like, no, because that shows, you know, that they've earned that title and they haven't. I had to grow up on my own. You know, I had to learn. And I literally got into some very horrible relationships because what I thought was okay is what I learned from being in the home, from being in the house.
And what type of stuff, for instance, what is a golden child and what is a scapegoat? So what I keep hearing these phrases. So he's the golden child and you are the scapegoat, I believe. So
yes.
Explain those two terms. I know you've sort of explained who he is and what sort of happened to you, but explain the terms for the people in the chat.
The golden child is the child that one, if not both parents, recognize as the one that they just thrive on. It's the one that they kind of want to be like. That child does no wrong. The child, for instance, he wrote his thesis, and I've written a book. And my egg donor says, "Oh, writing a thesis is so much more challenging than writing a book." And he could never do wrong. If he literally, here's another one. He was flying down the road one day years ago, and my daughter took pictures of him flying down the road. We were in the car, and she was like, "That's not him." Well, she has a picture of his face. That's not him. If he says that's not him, it's not him. We have a picture of his face.
There's a delusion then. There's a delusion
Yes.
about this, that there's like an aura about, so this guy can do no wrong.
Correct.
His thesis is better than your book. And that's crazy, by the way. You know, to be an author, to write a book, to, as you say, you were very driven in the sense, and suppose there's a positive you could take out of that. I know it's not a big positive. You would rather the love than that type of a positive. You were very driven to become successful in anything that you've done because of this sort of lack of love from your mother and father, should I say. I'm just going to say that, you know, for the viewers. But, you know, that you were very driven, and this guy is very sort of, he's not driven whatsoever. And there is no balance there. There is no balance. So, and you are the scapegoat then. So what is the scapegoat then?
I could never do anything right. If something happened that, let's say, the golden child did, I would be held at fault for it, even if I wasn't there. I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house, and it was just myself and my grandparents, and that was my home. That was my safe haven. But if I would come back, say, on a Sunday night and something was missing, something was broken, you know, which all kids do when we're young, then it was Victoria did it, and I would be grounded. I wasn't even there. It doesn't matter. You did it.
Wow.
And that is what is so challenging. The golden child is brilliant. He's a very smart kid, but yet he doesn't see himself that way. He has very low self-esteem, and he could do so much with his life, and he doesn't. And it's heart-wrenching because I wish I had a relationship with him. I know it'll never happen. Like I said, I wish him all the best in the world. He and I are as different as night and day. We couldn't be more different. And that is just what it is. But the scapegoat, we get held for everything. Everything is our fault. Both of my parents, if you will, belittled me at every time. They would make fun of me. I was always very weight conscious because my mother is a little heavier. Her other child is heavy. So I always was a fitness fanatic because of it. I was very cautious. I didn't want to hear from my parents that I was unattractive because I was heavy. I just wanted approval. I wanted someone.
Would they say that to you? Would they actually say you're unattractive?
They did after my domestic violence. I heard it constantly.
We'll get to the
man looking like that with all your scars.
Well, look, that's absolutely disgusting, and that will lead us on to the domestic violence. But just staying on the topic of the childhood here, because it's very, very emotional to hear this, but it's
I know, I'm trying not to.
It's fascinating too to understand the dynamic of how this must feel as a kid to go through this type of behavior and to even just live through this. Do you ever look back now at your childhood and think that it's like you weren't even there, that didn't even happen? It was like a different reality or something?
I do. And then I keep trying to remember my grandparents and everything I wanted to be like. And I asked my grandmother one day why my dad was so different, because they raised him. And I saw them as like saints. They did no wrong. This man was completely in love with my grandmother. My grandfather was. He opened all the doors. He was such an old-fashioned gentleman. Mm-hmm. And he ordered for her, and it was, look at my wife. She's beautiful. I love her. And it didn't matter if I was like, hey, can I sit and watch TV? Everything stopped. We're going to watch TV. We're going to do something as a family. We had family dinners together. We played board games. We played card games. This was how family was supposed to be. And so that's what I kept trying to push on. And I asked my grandmother, why is he so different? And I remember I was 15. My grandfather had just passed. And she said, your mother has ruined him. I didn't understand. I couldn't comprehend what that meant until I went through the domestic violence myself. And I realized that he was ruining me. And that made sense. And, I said to her, I said, that doesn't make sense because you raised him. And she said, well, you're not like them and they've raised you. And
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
She said, you're using what we do when we raise you, when we have you, on the weekends and summers and stuff. And you're taking that and absorbing it. And so it really took me going through the abusive marriage to realize what she meant by that. Because at 15, I couldn't grasp it.
Yeah, so yeah, you were struggling to understand why your father was like that because he was raised by such good people, and you felt this warmth. Thank God that you had this warmth with your grandmother and grandfather. They were giving you this love, this affection, this family time, this sort of family unit that you needed. Do you think if you didn't have that, it would be different? That you would be different today? Do you think that sort of saved you from total darkness to have your grandmother and grandfather in your life?
Absolutely. Because my younger sibling didn't. He was too young. And so I see how he turned out. But I am so headstrong and so driven. But I honestly, if I didn't have them, I think I would be just like them.
Really? So do you actually think that those traits, those narcissistic, so I'm going to say it a little bit sociopathic because there's lack of empathy there a bit. There's a wee bit of, that I always say, if to have that level of narcissism, especially towards your children, you should have this maternal instinct, even a masculine maternal instinct towards, we all have it, a father's instinct towards their kids and their
Right.
mothers. I mean, to not have that is not, that to me just isn't narcissism. To me, there has to be some, maybe even psychotic traits to a certain degree. But it's really good that you had that in your life, and it's actually good. It's really fascinating. So your view is that you would have actually turned out like them if you didn't have that, like the goodness of your grandmother and grandfather.
Yes, but
That's
can I elaborate that just a hair?
yeah, of course, yeah.
I think I would have turned out like them in certain ways. I don't necessarily agree that the narcissism and the sociopath and all that is a genetic trait. I think that if I was around them enough, you pick up their traits and their habits. So I think that the clarity should be I would have picked up more of who they were on an everyday basis, and I would have just kind of followed suit, if you will. I don't believe it's like a genetic passing through at all. I think I don't think it's a choice on some level for some people. Some people, I think they love it and thrive for it. It's the power and the control. I think I would have been more of if I didn't have my grandparents, I think I would have been more of the screw it attitude. It's all about me and what I can do. And that kind of mentality without being abusive, because that's not in me at all. I can't, like my daughter will tell you, I've never spanked her in her life. I've never raised my voice to her once in her life. There's ways to discipline without belittling, and I've never done that. So I think I would have picked up other things, but maybe not been the narcissistic sociopath, because I don't agree with any of that at all.
Fair play for fighting different tactics around sort of not spanking kids and not shouting at kids. And listen, there's a lot of people looking at this going, that's really hard. And I know. Listen, we're going to call a spade here. We know it's very, very hard to do those things, but you have to, because you're only portraying on aggression on the children, and they will sort of learn from that aggression. But moving on, so you've had that childhood. There's the golden child. You're the scapegoat. Is that you've just got one brother?
I have a half sister.
And a half sister. How is your half sister treated?
She has no relationship with my sperm donor at all. She is a spitting image of my egg donor. They are spot on to one another.
Is she nice to you? Is she in your life?
There's no relationship there at all. And she really only cares about herself. That's what she's all about, is her. She's very materialistic. So everything has to be the outlandish house, the expensive cars. It's the perception of what others see of her. that just like my parents are. They're the exact same way. If you saw where they live, you would be totally understanding. They have a 7-car garage and they want more. And their house feels like an empty museum. It feels like you go in there and they're like, oh, you can't wear shoes and you can't have a dog that's going to scratch the floor. And their house is over 10,000 square feet. And
It's not human, is it really? It's not a human thing, that is it? It's weird, that, isn't it? Like,
yes, it's scary. It's scary because life is too short not to live it for the moment.
yeah, I agree. I know. I 100% agree with you. And I know there's people like that over here, and I have friends that are very materialistic, and they're still good friends of mine. But it's not a human thing to do. Where's the as we call it in Ireland, the crack? Everybody comes into the house, everybody's eating and having a laugh and joking, and everybody's having fun in their life. We're not worried about. We can always get a new carpet. A Labrador is a good dog. We don't want a wee tiny small Chihuahua that's just going to sit there all day with his eyes crossed. We want a Labrador that's going to interact with children. We want to have fun in our life, and
Yes.
I get where you're coming from. So moving on then.
Well, like the one last thing is like.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
My daughter would put her hand on the wall at their house, and then immediately here they come. Oh my God, you have a handprint on our wall. Don't ever touch the wall, and then they would go and make her get one of those eraser things and get her handprint off the wall. And as soon as they went around the corner, I was like, come here. And I'm like, and I put my hand all over the wall and I'm like, you know what? Forget it. Let's go. Like,
wow, that's crazy. So they would actually make the thing about it is that's giving a young child a nerve. Listen, see if I took my son, right, to my mom's, or if I took him up to my mother-in-law's, and they were going mad over handprints. Okay, you have to teach boundaries and respect and other people's property. I get that 100%. But if you're going to teach, like, my son wouldn't go back. He wouldn't go back. He would just say to me, because he has autism, he's very, very straight. He would tell you exactly the truth. He'd say, I'm not going back there, Daddy. And I just wouldn't take him back. I don't like to hear stories like that, because kids need freedom. Okay, teach them boundaries, teach them about property and stuff, but they need freedom, and a handprint is a handprint.
Exactly.
You can, a bit of paint, I'll go over it, and you won't even know it's there. Is there anything else you want to say about that subject then?
Well, and that's the thing, is that now that my daughter is born, and I know we'll get into it with my book, but the fact that they have disowned her and disowned me, that's fine. If you want to do it to me, that's fine. But they've disowned her. She's special needs herself. She's had 34 surgeries. The last one was only a couple of weeks ago. She thrives. And she's the most amazing person. You met her. She has such a great spirit, and her warmth comes across. She's just amazing. She's such a gift.
She's wonderful. She's wonderful. She's wonderful, Victoria. She's absolutely wonderful. We had a wee chat beforehand, and she's jokey. She's a great personality. Wants to be seen, wants to talk, and things like that. And listen, what more can you ask for in a person?
Right. Well, my sperm donor would go and bring women around her and then tell her, you can't tell your grandma. And I said, you're not teaching my daughter to lie. And that's not how this is going to work. And
lemon, he would bring lemon.
He would bring women.
Oh, women! I thought you said lemon. Women.
No,
what do you mean? Is this the sperm donor? Your father would bring other women around her. So his, I don't know what you call them. His girlfriends, should you say?
Sure.
Round your daughter, and that's sort of that's freaky. That's weird, isn't it? Like that, he shouldn't be doing that.
Right. And so she called him the A word. And
an asshole. You can curse.
Oh, can I? I just didn't want to be.
No, after 5 minutes you can curse.
Okay, so she did. She called him an ass, and he was furious. And she said, "Well, you don't take time to listen to me." And if I said "but," it sounds like and you would say you don't understand me, so you're an asshole. And then it's true. She says you use me to get the attention of other women, and
he used her to get.
Oh yeah.
So he would take his granddaughter out and use her to draw in women, sort of like that's like I mean, what? And there's another word for him like we would use in Ireland, and it's not an asshole. That's far too light for that guy. Like that's I don't even want to say it. But listen, like that's crazy. That's
It
crazy.
is.
That, you know.
Well, and I'm sure, because I don't have my chat on, so I can't see. The reason that he had any involvement with her is when I left, and I know we're going to do it, is that it was a safe place to go. And I was all about trying to get my daughter to survive. And so we did that. And they didn't meet her until she was 3 months. And they just never, like, they didn't act as grandparents to her like mine did to mine. So if she says, hey, I want to watch a movie, they had a movie theater in their home. And she'd say, I want to go watch a movie. No. Or he had to pick it. And every time he was around her, he was on his phone. And then he would tell his wife, well, fine, I'm going to take the girls out for dinner. And there would be a woman. And my daughter would be like, no. And we would leave. We got to the point we started driving there and meeting him in case he brought someone else so that we could leave, because that's not what I'm teaching my child.
Was your egg donor mother, was she aware of the other women?
She was not, but prior to going no contact, I advised her of all of it. And I even brought proof. I brought lots of proof, because the one thing about domestic violence survivors is what we feel we have is only as our word. And I had so much proof. I had text messages, I had pictures, and things of that nature. Like when I took my daughter on a trip here to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and we had separate hotel rooms. My daughter and I had one, and he had one, and he was like, okay, yeah, let's go spend some weekend together so, we can bond, blah, blah, blah. And next thing I know, there's a knock on our door, and there's another woman. And
Are these women that he's meeting on apps, or are these prostitutes?
oh, no, he knows them.
Right, so
No.
he's in relationships with these women, but
I don't want to speculate and say that, but she had no knowledge of it. And the texts that I have copies of are not something that I would send to anyone other than my husband.
Right, okay, look, okay, right, look, it is what it is. He shouldn't be doing that around his grandkids, and that to me shows a level of he doesn't, for somebody to do that, that's another form of empathy. I know you're going to say, well, sure, that isn't empathy, but it is because okay, if he's doing that behind the scenes and nobody knows about it, okay, it's bad enough as it is, but that's his own business. But to sort of bring your granddaughter into that, and that's sort of putting her in an awkward position where she's going to grow up and she's going to remember those things, and she's not going to see her grandfather in a good light. So he didn't care about that. He doesn't care about the future. He only cares about the moment.
Yes.
And he only cares about his needs,
Mm-hmm.
his needs and what he thinks and how he feels. And you're sort of painting a picture here of top drawer narcissism. So will we move on into then your sort of your relationship with, is there anything else you want to say about in between? But we'll move on now to your relationship with your ex-husband and how you were treated in that relationship.
Well, the examples of everything we've discussed before put me into where I was. I met him, and they're so unbelievably charming. They realize your weakness, they play on that weakness, and that's what he did. He knew I wanted nothing more than a family. I thrived on that. I just felt like my purpose was to be a wife and mother. And I had an amazingly successful career. I was independent. I lived by myself. The only thing I was missing was that unconditional love. I went home to an empty apartment. I had amazing friends. That wasn't an issue. But holidays and stuff, I was alone. I went 10 years with no contact of the parents. And outside of being a mom, it was drama-free. I hate drama. So it was drama-free. It was great. And then I had gotten in contact for a short period of time again with both of them, which was my mistake. But I was a kid and I wanted nothing more than to be a daddy's girl. And I did everything I could to get him to approve me, and nothing ever happened. He never came out of it. So I met this guy, and he was not my type physically. He was very unattractive, and he just blew me away with supposedly the story that he told me about how his family fostered kids. His mom and stepdad fostered all these children, and that he wanted a child, and he was injured overseas, and he was military. And that's all he ever wanted. And, now he's stateside and sorry. And this is the life he wants, was to be a parent as well. And I kind of went past the whole shallow thing of, well, there's just something not there, something wrong. That just doesn't feel right. He proposed not long after we had been dating. I did not officially move in with him until after we were married because I was traveling with work. And so we got married, and 2 weeks later, I was pregnant. And that is when it all started. You have to forgive me because I'm really trying not to start crying.
You're fine, Victoria, if you can, if you want. And listen, if you want to take a bit of time, just, you can. Don't worry, you can turn off the camera if you need to. Listen, this is your night to speak, and you can do whatever you want.
Thank you. You are amazing, which has made me feel so much more comfortable. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
It started with like moving. We were moving my stuff into his home, and little by little, I just didn't feel like it was right. Something was wrong. It never felt like this was the one. I was never in love with him. There was just something very off. But he was incredibly charming. So then he and I were sitting there one day, and all of a sudden he wanted something. I got up and I got something that he didn't ask for, and he hit me. And I was
Punch?
like, that didn't just.
He punched you, or did he slap you? What way did he hit you?
Well, the first time he hit me in the face, like punched me in the face. And I said, wait, that didn't just happen. Not to me. That didn't happen. I'm not that woman. And I was in complete denial. That did not just happen. And then he had taken his cell phone and threw it at my head. And I said, no. I was just like, no, this didn't just happen. He didn't.
What year was this?
2005.
2005, okay.
And so he threw the phone, and I'm pregnant. He threw the phone. He was not happy. At first, he demanded that he make sure I had a boy, like I had a say in the pregnancy of the sex of the child. And then it just kept getting worse. And as days went on and weeks came on, if dinner was late, then I got hit, I got beat. I would have a cabinet door opened in my face. He would break my nose. He would drag me through the house by my hair. He had to approve what I was wearing. Then he got to the point where he literally would follow me to my office exit so that he knew I got off and was actually going to work. I had a private line in my office, so I had to call so he could see on caller ID that I actually went. I never gave him any reason to question my loyalty at all. I caught him in quite a few little indiscrepancies at first, and I was just more being totally upfront. I'm being as raw as can be. I was more dumbfounded that I was getting hit than I was about trying to figure out the lies that I was learning. And I was pregnant, so
was he cheating on you then?
Absolutely. And so you think about it, and it's kind of like, well, he's cheating and he's lying to me about everything, and then you just kind of go into this headspin of why I'm taking care of, I'm doing this, I'm paying for that, I am paying for everything, which is not about the money, but I'm saying
you're paying for everything.
Yes, because I made like 3.5 times a year what he did.
Right. So I'm trying to build up a picture here. So where are you living at this stage?
I had moved out of my apartment into his home that he had.
Into his home, and you're making a lot more money than he is.
Yes.
He's obviously a very jealous type, and
yes.
I think maybe that's why he attacked you physically, and he had a lot of resentment towards you. It seems that way, and the whole cheating thing, though, I don't get that. Why would he cheat on you?
Because he guess he could get away with it.
Yeah.
I think it was the catch He loved the attention from the females.
Right.
That was
Yeah.
a really big deal, is that, the fact that he was getting attention.
It's so cringy, isn't it? It's
It,
cringy isn't it? It's cringy for him. It's cringy for him. You feel sorry for people that need to have this need to go that tell me I'm good, tell me I'm good, tell me I'm good looking, look at me, look at me. But as you say, you're there, you're pregnant, yeah, and he's hitting you, he's cheating, he's cheating. Now, the question is, why would you stay then? Why would you stay in that situation?
I'm so glad you asked that, because most people will say, "Why didn't you just leave? Why didn't you
Hmm.
just leave?" And when I advocate for domestic violence survivors, which I do now, that is something that so many survivors get so upset about. Is because unless you've walked in our shoes, you do not understand what it's like.
Hmm.
And I will tell you that I attempted one time to leave, and we had a under a year old puppy. The exact months I couldn't tell you, is what I was trying to think about what it was. And he went outside and shot the dog in the heart and told me that if I left, that would be me.
So you attempted to leave this man. This man lifts your puppy out of the house and
That was
shoots
his when I moved in.
the dog in the heart, kills the dog, says to you, if you attempt to leave, this is what's going to happen to you. So now he's threatening you with death and violence if you attempt to leave.
Yes, but the dog didn't die right away. We actually took the dog to the vet, a late night animal hospital, and I begged them, like with everything I had, to like call the police. And they said, "We have to call the police. This is, a crime." And he was like, "No, I just don't know how I'm going to handle it. I'm too upset." And I literally was, if you could imagine, I'm sitting there going, what? And the people there are like, "Sir, we need to report this. We need to report this and talk about this and find out what's going on and make a complaint." And he was like, "Somebody must have jumped our fence and shot the dog while we weren't home." And they said, "Well, you said you had two dogs." And he goes, "Well, I don't know where the other one was. The other one was perfectly fine." And that's what he did. And I obtained the records later on with the testimony of everybody.
Wow, what an listen, I'm just going to say it, right? I know you probably don't like cursing, but in Ireland we would
Actually, I do. I'm pretty bad.
right, listen, in Ireland we have a name for him, and he's called a cunt. He's just a pure cunt. And that man there, to do that to an animal, that is psychotic. That is psychotic. I know, I understand the domestic violence, but to do that, to prove a point, to say this will be you, that man, look, I can't say that in YouTube, advocate somebody being shot, but hypothetically speaking, in a different world, that man wouldn't be here. He deserved exactly what he done to that dog. That's absolutely disgusting. What, doing that to an animal. So you're now, what happens after that? Then you're in this situation. Do you actually feel your life is being threatened?
Absolutely. I feel like I'm drowning. I am so afraid. I am watching myself go from a very confident business professional to a silent, terrified, battered woman, where any noise I jumped, any sound I jumped. I was petrified of him being near me. If he got near me, I would jump. I was petrified of what he was going to do next. If he had very bad OCD, so everything had to be in threes. And if I, for instance, didn't put three radishes in his salad, I was going to get hit. And I mean, it was so extreme and so unreal. I almost felt like I was just in a tunnel going through the motions of life, and it wasn't life, it was hell. Because I couldn't go to the bathroom with the door shut, because what am I doing in there with the door shut? Why do I need the door shut while I'm in there going to the bathroom? I was raised by my, the meaning of my life as an adult. I took as the patterns I learned from my grandparents, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the morals that I used. So when you're in the bathroom and you're a lady, you shut the door. And so that's what I did, is I shut the door. And he said, "You don't need this fucking door shut." And he would come in with my metal hairbrush that I brushed by the edge of my bed at night and slammed it into my face and said, "I'm taking the door off the hinges. You don't need to be in here with the door shut. Yeah, you're not taking a bath or whatever." And he threw me into the dry bathtub And
Was your daughter born at this stage?
I was pregnant with her.
Right. So this is all going on while you're pregnant.
Everything happened while I was pregnant.
So everything happened when you were pregnant.
Yes.
He's doing it like that's right. So that's mental. That's domestic abuse, but that's also that's a level that I've never heard of. I know that there's been was there alcohol involved? Did he drink an awful lot?
He did. He did, and he took different pills.
Right.
And he said he was taking them for pain, and then he was taking stuff because of experiences overseas for memories and things like that.
PTSD.
That's what he said. And he also had Ambien to help him sleep, and he would pop several Ambien, drink a couple beers, and he was out of his mind.
Not excusing his behavior, but did he suffer from severe PTSD? Did he witness things overseas that would change a man? Do you believe if he didn't go to those places and he had just stayed as he was, and he didn't join the military, he would be a different person?
To be honest with you and not jump way too far ahead, I found out after an investigation that he had never been deported. He had never been overseas.
So he's a liar.
Yes, everything he said about being overseas was a lie.
So that's sort of, in a sense, stolen valor.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm getting a picture of this guy. It's a maybe small, slithery little snake of a man who likes to prey on people that are weaker than him. I'm not saying you're weaker than him, but physically weaker. You're a woman, and he's a man, and a slithery, sly snake who just like to control. I couldn't imagine him doing that to any of his mates, his male mates. Was there any telltale signs that at this stage? I'm trying to think. So, have you got a social life? Is there people coming in and out of your house? Does he have friends? Do you have friends? Is there anybody witnessing this saying, do you listen? This is a bit of a strange behavior. What's going on here? Are you isolated at this moment? What's going on?
I'm completely isolated. He got rid of my phone, but I had cut my SIM card. He didn't know about that. And he didn't have any friends. None. Nobody liked him. People at work thought he was arrogant, and so they just tolerated him. He made me carry around a picture of him, and he looked like Audie Murphy. I don't know if you know who that is. It was a person way long time ago who was one of the most highly decorated U.S. military personnel.
Audley Murphy, did you say?
Audrey Murphy. Sorry,
Audrey Murphy. No, I could have. Was this guy a handsome guy or something?
No.
Right. Okay. Why would he make you carry that picture around?
So everybody would know, and I had to wear his dog tags, and he would check to make sure I have his dog tags on at all time.
I'm just mind blown here. I'm physically thinking, what is the point of this for this man to do this to you? I know there's no point. There should be never a point to do this. There's never an excuse. But is there a psychotic? Is he diagnosed with something? I know it's narcissism, and it's domestic abuse, but what actually is this? What would make a person? There's never a moment in time we'll wake up and go, well, do you know what? You're wearing what I'm telling you to wear today, and you're keeping these dog tags on you. And if the dinner isn't ready, you're going to get a slap. It's just it's odd behavior. It's very, very. I know this goes on a lot around the world, but it's very, very odd behavior, and it's ego, it's narcissism, and it's instilled in some people to be like this. So at one stage, do you move to a base or something that you were telling me?
No, he and I lived off base, and
Off base.
We were on the base together, and he was standing there, and his captain was 10 feet away, and he broke my nose in front of his captain, and they didn't do anything. They did nothing.
He broke your nose in front of a military captain.
Yes.
And he wasn't reprimanded. He wasn't. So now you're seeing this behavior condoned by the USA military.
Yes, which I've come to learn by working with other families is much more than people think. It's 1 in 4 military families are going through domestic abuse, and my 1 in 4. How many aren't going to say anything? How many are afraid to say something for exactly the reason that I did, because they're not helping us? And I did ask his captain. I went all the way to the provost marshal with this, and I said, isn't the United States military supposed to protect the United States citizens? Well, you're not even protecting us on our own soil. You're not protecting me, and he's going to kill me.
Yeah. But you know what? And I'm going to say it, and this is how I feel. They're training killers, and that's how you win wars, isn't it? By training killers. And this is a cold, hard fact. To put these young lads through training, the most extreme training, especially the greatest military that's on planet Earth, the USA. The complex that it is, it's a machine that needs fed, and they put these young lads through this, and they build them up, and they make them into killers. And I suppose, in a sense, that if you're already built in with narcissistic traits, and you're maybe a bit psychotic, and you've got this ego, massive ego, you want people to love you, and you want to be beautiful, and women to look at you all the time. And then you add on top of that the military. It's a recipe for disaster. And is there no counseling in the military for people like this to sort of talk about home life and to see how you're doing, and how's life? How's your daughter? I suppose your daughter's not born yet, but is there none of that set in place for you and the family?
There is. There's an advocacy program that's set for the military, for the spouses and children that are going through domestic violence.
And it was that there whenever you were there?
Yes.
And did you take them up on that?
Yes, I did.
So even though that's going on with the captain, you can go and speak to people that are involved with the military to help you with these situations. And the captain still isn't recognizing this as a legitimate form of domestic abuse. He's just ignoring this.
Yes. So I went above the captain to next in line.
What did he think, or she think?
He said I'm making very strong allegations against his soldier.
What an absolute wanker he is, like.
And you look at me, I'm very pale, and I can't hide bruises very well. And I was always, either I had a dislocated shoulder, a broken nose, both sides of my jaws have been broken numerous times. My foot
broke your jaw when you were pregnant?
Both sides have been broken 3 times.
When you were pregnant?
Yes, sir.
He broke your jaw when you were pregnant, and the military knew about this?
Yes.
Oh,
the military
Jesus.
came and saw me in the hospital.
Oh, Jesus, that's terrible. I mean, what a bunch of wankers, every single one of them. Every single one of them should be and every single one of them need their jaw broke for one. They need on both sides. That's what they need. And they need to be exposed publicly. And that needs to be exposed, because I still think you can train killers to win wars without making them go home and beat their wives and do terrible, disgusting things to their wives and be controlling. This is the greatest military on planet Earth. This needs to be held at a higher standard. Do you know what I mean? If you're going to police the earth, you have to be able to police yourself.
Yes.
So, right. And what course of action do you take then with this whole situation? How do you get yourself out of this situation?
Well, it went on for months. He ended up, if you look, actually, I'll take one of them out. I don't know if you can tell, I am hearing impaired now. And I have them in both ears because he ruptured both of my eardrums when he broke my jaws. And so I now rely on hearing aids in order to hear. So in both my ears, I have hearing aids. And I literally got to the point where I jumped at a shadow. I jumped at anything. I trained myself to feel him move in the bed, because one of the things that you learn in any kind of training of any sort is to, stop the fight right then and there and just stop it. But you can't when he wakes you up, straddled over you, and is beating you in the face. And that's
there's no sexual things to this here, if you mind me asking. It's not sexually motivated or anything.
We only had consensual sex twice, 2 or 3 times, and the third time's kind of questionable. The rest of the time, he raped me while pregnant.
How is this guy still walking about the place?
The
The
military.
greatest country on earth, I feel really bad. The greatest fucking country on earth, right? America. And you've got these rapists, women abusers, and oh, by the way, guns are legal. Why is this guy not buried out in the desert somewhere?
I don't know.
That's absolutely disgusting. I'm sorry if I felt that's absolutely disgusting. I can't believe that you went through that. Um, it's terrible, terrible. And it's so. How did you get out of it?
Well, it actually gets a lot worse. A lot worse. He stabbed me over a dozen times.
Yes, go through the list of things if you don't mind of
No,
the things that you had to go through. I'll just stay quiet. You go through the
no,
list of
don't
things.
think why. He stabbed me over a dozen times. He would beat me, hit me in the middle of the night. He took me in the truck and took me down to a 2-lane part of the interstate and dropped me off on the side, got out of the highway. I was in my pajamas, no shoes, and got me out of the truck and told me I wasn't allowed to touch his truck. And so he hit me so hard I bounced into the side of the truck and got blood on it, and he drove off, leaving me on the side of the highway. And I wished that an 18-wheeler would pick me up and take me. I wished anybody at that point would take me, because I didn't feel like I was alive anymore. I felt like I was just motionless. I felt like I had nothing. I was just a dead person, really. And I don't know how long I walked. I started walking towards an exit, and I was just hoping to God I could get there. And I'm literally walking on the road where there's rocks, and I feel my feet are cutting open. And he pulls back sometime later, and what really blows your mind is he would get out and he would say, "Why are you walking on the street? Why are you doing this? You're pregnant. You need to be in the truck. We got to get you home." And you're like, "Wait, what?" That doesn't make
That's is that a form of gaslighting, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
It's,
you're changing the perception of reality, making you think that you're crazy.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the one time I went into preterm labor due to stress, and they told him that my OBGYN hated him. They met him. They actually made sworn affidavits for me in court that they witnessed the abuse. He hit me in there with them. They contacted the base and let them know, and nothing happened, because the civilian sector doesn't have rights to a soldier when they're active duty, supposedly. It's supposed to start where the military police and CID do a joint investigation, and then they go from there, and then they work with the civilian sector. So that's how he kept getting away with everything. And so I went into preterm labor, and they told him I had to be careful and not be stressed. And I went home that night, and it was probably one of the worst nights of my life, because he beat me so badly that he broke the bone in my throat by suffocating me and strangling me. I blacked out. When I came through, I was on the bed, and I was bleeding in places that you don't think you can bleed from. And he tried to cut my daughter out, and so I have scars from that. I promised him that if he wouldn't touch my stomach, that I would never fight him back, because I wanted my kid. I wanted my daughter. And so as long as he didn't hit my stomach, I wouldn't fight him. He could do whatever he wanted. Just let her be okay. Let her be okay. That's all I asked. And he did everything else he wanted. That's for sure. And so he beat me. He raped me. He did everything. I mean, there's a knife scar right here where he put the knife in my chest, and you can see on my arm that there's a scar from my wrist all the way up And then down my back, you can see it from where he stabbed me. And I was trying to get away, and you can see that. And then there's another one on my other arm from me trying to get away. And if I cried, he would do it again until I stood there and took it. And I had to learn how to show no emotion. And he was escalating, tremendously escalating in the violence. He would take a belt and just beat me with the metal part of it for no reason.
Were you worried? Were you worried? By the way, you're tremendously brave to go through that. You are twice the soldier that he is. So 10 times, 50 times, a million times. He's not even a soldier. That guy is a piece of shit. He's not even a soldier, right? You're a million times the soldier he is, right? Just to let you know that. But what I'm going to say here is, were you worried then for once you give birth to your daughter that that this could possibly harm your daughter?
Yes, because he started to show me another side of him, which was he was participating in child pornography, and I did not know about it.
Hold on, he is a pedophile. So he's a pedophile, a rapist, a woman abuser, and the military backed him up.
Yes.
Shame on the United States of America military. Shame on the US military. Shame on them. And were they aware of his behaviors of child pornography?
I asked, and they said that there's no proof. And I said, well, look at the history on his computer. And he admitted to it. I mean, he thought he was untouchable and that he could get away with anything. He poisoned his dad and got away with it. And
killed his father.
Mm-hmm.
He's I'm not laughing.
His dad was dying, and the way he got away with it was saying he was trying to be like a Dr. Kevorkian and help him not suffer.
Oh, right, like a morphine type job. He gave him like morphine, right? Okay.
I don't know. I don't want to speculate, but I know that he did something to expedite the death.
All right, so yeah, he didn't maliciously want to take a person, but listen, regardless, right? Listen, regardless, this guy's a sicko, right? This guy is a sicko. So. Yeah, I don't want to keep saying is there any more, because you're telling this story very well. You're very brave to tell this story. So I'll just let you tell the story how you want to tell this story.
So I shut down. I would go to work. I was an executive going to work in a turtleneck in the summer when it's 100 degrees here. And I kept telling the military, his commanding staff, that he was going to kill me. And they were just dumbfounded by the fact that I was making these allegations. And I asked them, what would they do if he did it? And they said, oh, he would have to eat concrete. And I've never heard that term before, but I learned later on that is a military term for going down on the ground, I guess, some kind of, it's like a metaphor or some way. And they literally, he did so many horrible things on a daily, weekly basis. And when I would say something to his captain and say, hey, this is happening, what is it going to take? He was like, oh, he already told us about this. He already told us about that. And I mean, if you look here, you'll see I have a scar here from where he stabbed me in the eye, and it went down my face. You can see it, and you can't cover it up.
When you're walking about and they're seeing you with these marks and they're seeing you with these bruises and stuff, is nobody red flagging this? Because if I didn't even know a lady and she walked by me in the street and she had all these marks over her face, I probably would just ring the police just to say, listen, I've seen a lady and she looks pretty beat up. Is nobody in your life? Where is your mother and father at that time?
I had no connection with them at that point. He didn't let me have anything to do with anyone outside of work. And he would spot check, show up at my office.
Are they happy for that to be that way?
I don't know. Because we weren't speaking.
Was whenever you get back, do you speak to your mother and father after them situations?
Yes.
And do they say to you, are they showing you support? Are they showing you love? What do they do? What sort of?
They did not meet my daughter until she was 3 months of age. And my egg donor said there was something very fishy about him that she didn't like, which when they met him, I was that person who walked behind him and was looking at the ground and wouldn't make eye contact with you, which is very opposite of who I am. And I literally was just like this the whole time. And he kept pushing me further away so that they couldn't see. And I had all these bruises on my face. And I was walking with a limp because one of the last things that happened is he kicked me and it caused a DVT, a blood clot in my leg, and put me into preterm labor. And I ended up in the ICU for 2 weeks. And so my daughter was born during that time and was life flighted because neither one of us were told we would make it. And so I remained in ICU at one hospital while she was life flighted pretty far away. And they met her 3 months later. They met my daughter 3 months later.
Do you think if he wasn't in the military, he'd be in jail now?
I don't think he would be in jail. I don't think he'd be here.
Right. So you think the military kept this guy alive?
Absolutely.
Right. So you believe it's because of he had the backing of the military, this guy was able to do this. He knew this here, and the military is just as fault as him.
Yes.
Yeah, I believe that too. I believe that too, because I do listen. I'm looking. America is not too much different from here, right? People are going to be people, and it's at the end of the day, if you see something wrong, you're going to do something about it, and they do have America does have a justice system, just like here, and I do believe that something would have been done. I think it was the military that actually was the problem here, that sort of facilitated his behavior.
Yes.
So what's the day like that you leave? How do you go? How do you get out of that situation?
Well, after I got out of ICU, I stayed with my daughter around the clock in the NICU. I wasn't going anywhere. And after 3 months, my parents met her. And
is this in a hospital or your house?
No, I didn't leave the hospital. She was at the hospital. That's where they met her. And I was not hoping for them to hear about it this way. You could look at me and see I had bruises on me and my old bruises. And I know that you had a couple of pictures, but I gave you a bunch of other ones where you can really, you can see in one of them, you can see his thumbprints on my throat and his hands around my neck. And I was calling to make a follow-up. They had me on a medication called Coumadin for the blood clot after I had given birth. They can't take you on Coumadin until after you give birth because it's poison. So while I was in preterm labor, they had me on heparin and Lovenox injections alternating. Then after she was born, I went on Coumadin, and I had to call and make an appointment to get my lab drawn because you constantly have to have your level checked. And the doctor herself came on, and I had it on speakerphone because it was so hard for me to hear. And she was like, "We have been praying for you and your daughter nonstop since all this happened. Anything you need, we're right here, and we're going to help you every step of the way. And we're so sorry that he did this to you. And, we're writing statements for you because the bruise on your leg was a military boot print. And we saw that. And we're documenting everything. And they took pictures. And so she's like, we're going to put it together for you." And then I'm like grabbing my phone, trying to take it off speaker because both my parents are right there. And they just kind of look over at me and say, "Is there something you want to say?" No, there's not. And so needless to say, a little while after that, they offered for me to move there. But they went they went on a vacation to a car show with him. They went to a car show with him. And
hold on. Did they know about everything at this stage?
They knew that I was beaten to the point I was in the ICU. I didn't talk about it. I was so withdrawn. I didn't have a voice. I didn't have a voice.
Your mother and father take your husband who beat you
Mhm.
They know about this now. There's a lot more. There's a lot more.
Mhm.
But he's laid a hand on, to their knowledge, he's laid hands on you and put you in ICU.
Yes.
And they take him on holiday to a car show.
Yes.
How does that make you feel?
Mortified. It just made me feel like my whole world was drowning. And I looked at my daughter and said, I am not going to let that be your parent. I can't let that be your parent. And actually, from that moment, like I got there, I had a picture of my grandparents and I had it put over her NICU part of the incubator. And it was always there. And I said, you're going to get who they were because that's who you deserve. But my parents, if you will, they had ridiculous security on their properties. And I knew that that would probably be the safest place. I knew I couldn't go back to work until I myself healed. I needed a lot of surgery. Until my daughter was in a much better place, I wasn't going to have any surgery because my responsibility was to my child.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't have surgery. And I knew that it would exacerbate my injuries, but I didn't care because I needed my daughter with me. And my daughter was coding every single day. And I had to make the decision to put a tracheostomy, not me myself. I had to make the decision for the doctors to put in a tracheostomy to help her stay alive. So I knew that going back to that hell was my option so that I could be with her 24/7.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. You're gonna put everything else to the side. There's security for your child, and that's above all. So how when they come back from the holiday, where's the split then? Where it's just you aren't getting back together. He knows that, and he goes away. And
He
is
never
there,
went away,
he
not
never
at
went.
not at first.
So you had to leave your mother and father's house to completely separate away from him too.
No, when I told him that I was leaving, it was before we had even been married we were just shy of a year. I mean, just shy of a year. And what happened was I went to the military base and I asked to see his captain and the provost marshal.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked them to meet me off site because I didn't want him to see me.
Mm-hmm.
And they agreed. And when they met me, I said, where is he? And they said, what do you mean, where is he? He's been off work since like noon. And immediately I'm freaking out because I'm thinking, where is he? And they said, well, he said he's with you. And so I start sending my dad a message saying, I need someone up at the hospital with her right now, because I don't know where he is. And I never left my daughter's sight. This was the time I did. And so I told them, I said, I warned you that he was going to kill me. And when they came and saw me in the hospital, I was unrecognizable. And like I said, we had medical records and pictures and statements and affidavits and audio recordings. We have all of it. And I yelled at both of them to get the hell out because they did not do their job in protecting me and my daughter. And they put us there just as much as he did. And I admit that because I absolutely did. I did scream at them and told them to get out because I do hold them as much responsible as him.
They are responsible. They are.
So I told them everything. And I said, we're at a time of war. And look what I found. And I display all this stuff. He had passes to get onto the base. He had all sorts of other, things that you're not supposed to have. And they just kind of looked at me and they looked at each other. And I said, I don't know where he is. And they said, well, we're going to call him in and have him come. And I was like, he's going to kill me. And they said, well, we're going to send you over to the advocate office where they'll put you in hiding for the moment. And we're going to bring him on in. And, they said, you're really making strong allegations. And I said, I'm telling you when he arrives that he will probably have a vehicle full of narcotics and he'll have a loaded gun. And they said, no, he will not. I said, yes, he will. And he did. And, it's just, they just turned an eye to it.
They've seen all this evidence, 2 bodies, all this evidence. Now they find him with a load of narcotics. And
there was this pain medication. He had a prescription for it. But you're not supposed to be driving on it.
We're not taking him around the back with a couple of batons and smashing his legs to pieces, which he deserves. They're actually backing him up. Do you know what I mean? Which tells me that these guys are pussies too. Do you know what I mean? Wow.
So they, they send me over to a lady, and I'm in there with her, and she promises my safety, and they tell me that they're going to lock him up or whatever. They didn't. I asked at that point for them to submit a request or whatever needed to be done to transfer him to a different base, like far away, and I was denied. And so he admitted everything that he did. He was proud of it. He begged about it and said, well, it's in my home. My home is in the civilian sector. You can't do anything to me. I didn't know anything about military law. Most people who marry in the military, don't know military law. And so I end up leaving and going back to my daughter's. And on the way, he follows me. We get in this little following car thing, if you will. And I had the police get involved. And by the time he saw the police, he had turned off and he wasn't following me anymore. And I called the civilian sector of law enforcement. And one thing I didn't tell you, and all this is going on, was the captain kept saying, why do you have so much proof? Why do you keep all these records? Why do you have all of this? And I said, because I don't know what else it's going to take to get you to do your job. I don't know what else it's going to take to get you to do what you need to do to provide me my safety. And I was so afraid that if I was dead, that nobody would know. And so I had all this proof together so that there would be no question and they could go after him, which was why I kept getting stuff saying it's still happening. It's still going on. What is it going to take? Do something. Protect me. Protect my unborn child. Mm-hmm. And they didn't. So I went to the civilian sector. I had a fabulous female detective. Absolutely just fabulous. And I don't want to speculate and say she's been through something similar, but if she hadn't, she knew someone close to her that had. She went up to the base and pitched a fit. I mean, just was like, that's it. I'm picking him up. This is it. We'll figure it out later. And I went over to the bind over hearing, and he was released on a technicality. And we had him dead to right on 9 felonies.
What about 9 felonies? Is in one of them including child porn?
No, the military had his computer, and that was under a CID and military police investigation.
So they're covering for a pedophile.
Mm-hmm. And he even had his own website and his own aliases, and he would link his favorite videos, and they were disgusting.
Hold on. He had his own websites to do with children.
He had his links to his favorite websites, or he had his own profiles on those sites with his favorite videos linked to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's clear evidence.
Yes.
That's evidence.
Their response was they can't prove without a questionable doubt if he was the one who uploaded them, and it was an identity fraud.
Uploaded, sure, he has it. He has it. It doesn't matter about uploading it somewhere. You don't have to distribute it.
Right.
You can be caught with a bag of heroin. You're not distributing it. By the way, I'm not saying anything.
Possession. Right.
I would rather be a heroin addict than be that. Heroin addicts, at least, they have, they can't help what they're doing. This guy, you've actually got me speechless.
Sorry.
And I know everything that happened to you, disgusting, terrible. But the military know that this guy is an active pedophile, and they're backing him up. The United States military know this guy is a woman abuser, an active pedophile, and they're backing this guy to the hilt.
Yes, and then they were supposed to, and then I actually went to the base commander, the commander of the entire base, and it was dumbfounding. Because it was literally like brushed off, and I said to them, how would I know what a transitional compensation package is if I didn't hear about it from your advocate team? How would I know what that is? That is a military fund set up to help victims, because they are men victims out there of domestic violence, and their children obtain safety. How would I know what that is? And I even pulled out a business card from the advocate herself, and she wrote her own personal cell phone number on it. And I said, here's her card. Here's, what she gave me. How would I have this? And they had nothing they could say. There was nothing that they could say. And so they said, well, we're going to investigate it, blah, blah, blah. They made him go see, I don't know what they call it, the military shrink. And he tried to say he was under so much pressure because the baby was sick and he's gone through all of this. And then it came to light during an investigation that he had put his first wife in a drug rehab center because he pulled a shotgun and put it in her face. And she stabbed him because of it. And the scar that I had seen, he told me that he obtained it overseas. And we obtained the records after subpoena to find out that's not what that scar was from. That was actually from his first wife who was defending herself. And
Oh, wow. Wow. It's I can't add. I can't add that. I'm very, very shocked. I'm very, very shocked that that was allowed to go on.
yes, honestly, I've sat back so many times and said, this just can't be real. It's got to be, it's fake. It can't be. But if I didn't have all the evidence that I do, I would think there's no way. There's no
And
way.
still nothing to this day. He's just free, allowed to walk about and be a pedophile and a woman abuser.
I might have my number wrong because I don't watch over and see what he does at all times. I don't stalk him. I don't look for him. I don't, we end up having a very closed court hearing. He has no rights to my child. I got them terminated. And
Brilliant. Brilliant.
so, and my family was very non-supportive about it. They thought he should have been held to pay child support. And I explained that no amount of child support was going to provide that kind of safety from that measly whatever it would be he would pay if he paid it. And I said, this is my choice. And I
Did they know about the pedophilia too?
yes,
And they still said this guy should pay child support.
yes.
Like, you wouldn't even want anything to do with that guy. I know money's money, but
No, I didn't want that money.
what did your family think about that when it all came out? What was the reaction of your mom and dad?
I deserved it because I stayed.
You deserved it because you stayed. That's absolutely disgusting. They're just as bad, if not worse.
Yeah. And I would hear, you can't afford to have any more scars. You're never going to find anyone who wants you, with all the scars that you have. If you get bored on a Saturday, you can take a Sharpie marker and connect the dots to all the scars and keep you entertained. I haven't shown skin in over 16 years. I am covered from my ankle to my wrist. Even in the summer, I wear clothes from my ankle to my wrist. And that is just because he shattered my self-esteem. And I have been desperately trying to work on it. But I have scars everywhere. And I never had any tattoos before, but I realized that I don't want to look at my body on certain parts on a daily basis all day long and see what he did to me. So I started to get tattoos and cover the best that I could some of the scars that he had given me. But if you look now, you can see both my jaws have been replaced. I have dozens of pieces of metal in my face. You can feel the metal. It has changed the shape of my face completely. And the scars you can see are pretty dominant here. It's behind my ear as well. I've had to have my shoulder replaced. I have metal in my foot. I have screws in there. I have screws and pins in my hand. And here I have, I've had dozens and dozens and dozens of surgeries to correct what he's done. I told the court that in no way, shape, form, or fashion was he allowed to know some of the things I had to go through because I didn't want to give him that satisfaction. Like, I can't have any more children. And I had to have surgery internally to correct the damage that he did because he used other things just other than himself. So,
yeah, guys, listen. If there's any viewers from America, from Georgia, any Irish people, do you know what I mean? It just goes without saying. If there's any Irish viewer, like Irish people who are just living in Georgia, the Irish connections, you just know what to do. Like, that's absolutely. I mean, you're so brave. You're very, very brave. It's wonderful, where you are today. it's wonderful that you've. I mean, a lot of people would go through that and they would just give up, but you haven't give up. You've
because of
persevered
my daughter.
because of your daughter. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is now? What are you doing now after all of that and the recovery to that right up until now? How has that been?
Um, between my daughter and I together, we have over 130 surgeries between the two of us. And we advocate now for special needs. We advocate for the families, help them obtain the services and things that they need and that they deserve, and help them realize that they're not different. They're beautiful, and nobody wants normal. Nobody wants ordinary. And my daughter advocates a lot. She's in the process of finishing a song that she's writing about surviving domestic violence. And we do a toy drive every year to help kids. And then we also donate to a women's shelter. I go and talk to different women and let them see that you can survive. Um, we have moved it to a bigger platform where now you can go to the website, which is acontagiousmile.com, and see all the stuff that we do. We offer free support classes and groups so that you come in there and it's a non-judgmental, non-bullying, fully accepted group of people where you are amongst friends that get it and understand because we've lived it and been through it. So that makes a huge difference. But to go and answer your question about the court, when we went, I literally had the documents, the photographs, everything. I was even asked if I would wear a wire, which I did. And he admitted everything. He bragged about everything he did. And it was all released on a technicality. The 9 felonies were released, and he stayed in the military. And then they give him a medical discharge. And so he gets benefits for the rest of his life. And we didn't get any transitional compensation. We got nothing from them at that point.
He should have been disgracefully discharged,
Yeah.
and the bad. Well, I'm not going to say the bad side, but the boys from the army who were discharged themselves
Military.
for medical reasons, they should have just. He should have never been seen again.
Well, the military has different sectors. He was military.
But I mean, oh yeah, sorry, yeah. But what I'm saying is that the fact that he was able to just walk in, head held high, pedophile, woman abuser, just do whatever and just go over to the captain. Well, captain, sir, yes, no problem, and just walk out. I mean, he should have left the base for 5 minutes and never been seen again. Never been seen again, and then no investigations done. Just that's him gone. But yeah. So I'm going to ask you a question here. Is there any telltale signs that we can pick up on? I know it's different from male to female, right? Because we're going to talk about females here because males will be a bit different.
Yes.
But is there any telltale signs of, for instance, myself, I'm in a house, I notice something a wee bit strange about my friend's wife or whatnot. How can you tell if somebody's going through domestic abuse?
Well, you can tell little by their disposition and demeanor. A lot of times the women will, and honestly, at least for me and the women I've worked with, you can tell by, if you will, the stage that they're in. If it's just beginning or they're right in the middle of it. For instance, with me, I never could look anyone in the face. I was always looking down. Any noise, I would jump. I was petrified of any and every little sound. I became obsessed with making sure things were getting done above and beyond what I was made to do, so that I wouldn't anger him, because I was constantly asked, why did you make him mad? Why didn't you just do what he wanted? And so you would see just a very introverted, scared. I almost felt like I resorted back to a child in a way, where I was just so afraid of the disciplinarian. And you would see old bruises that are attempted to be covered up with makeup. You would see inappropriate dressing for that time of year. There is the person who becomes very protective of their abuser, because you get to believe that that's all you're going to ever get, that you deserve it, that, you know,
Mhm.
you were out of line, that you made him mad, you did whatever it was that you weren't supposed to do, and no one else is ever going to love you. And he's made you believe all those things. And I actually got to that point, and I believe that, you know, he would say, "You're so ugly. Do you know how many people feel bad for me because I'm with you? Do you know how bad everybody feels for me because you're so ugly? You're never going to find anybody else." And he would say, "The only reason I ever married you is because you're an ATM. I mean, you make so much more money and you're paying for everything, and yada yada." And that's what you would see. But also, we really also need to talk about like the characteristics of the abuser from a man's point of view, because they are smug and charming and characteristic. And I hope, if we, like my book, when my daughter was in a medically induced coma, I was sitting there with my laptop, because you can't stimulate your baby, and I'm literally just writing. And when I'm writing, I'm not writing a book, I'm writing who was where. I mean, I was getting interrogated and I'm the victim. I was getting, who saw him break your nose? Who was around? Well, I wasn't watching who was around while he was smashing my face in. Well, then it must not have happened. If I could tell you I knew, wouldn't there be something really wrong with that equation?
Yeah,
So,
they're there to back up the predator.
right. So I was constantly being interrogated about, well, where were you then? What day of the week was it? What month was it? What were you wearing? Like, I don't recall anything. I was trying to stay alive at that point. And so I just started writing because I couldn't scream. I was in a NICU. I was in the neonatal intensive care. It was damaged from my head to my foot. Literally, I have what's called secondary concussion syndrome from him smashing my skull in so much that to this day I'm treated for headaches. That I was just writing stuff down, and one of the therapists, the respiratory therapist, told me that I needed to publish it, and I said, "There is no way. I'll never publish this. It's humiliating." And then I realized that if it helps one person, which is what I'm praying that this podcast does, then it's worth it.
Can I just stop you 2 seconds? I just need to plug in my charger. 2 seconds. I apologize. I forgot to plug it in. Just give me 2 seconds. That's a bit unprofessional of me, but I just didn't want it to die there while you were talking about that. Go ahead.
No, that was it. So that's how I ended up. It took me well over 10 years to put the book out.
Yes, you do have a book, and the link for the book is in the description of this video. So if you want to read Victoria's book, you can just click on that link. It'll take you straight to Amazon, and you can buy it. And do you know what, guys? I haven't read the book yet, but what I will do is I will buy the book, and I'll give it a read. And I'm sure it's a not. I don't want to say a fantastic read, but it's somebody's life. It's somebody's life at the end of the day, and it's if you want to buy it, it's in the description. So what's the message now? What's the message now to people that are going? What would be your message to anybody that's suffering this, is watching this, that will watch this? What would be your message to them?
I completely understand that feeling of there's nothing left in this world for you, that you are a submissive person to your abuser's dominance, and that there's no light, there's no faith, there's no hope of getting out. And there is. And I know that you have one chance at it. You got to get your affairs in order. You can get out and survive. It's just getting yourself together to do it. There are ways to do it. There are, I explained it in the book, and there's nothing in that book that can't be proven. The only things that were changed were names and geographic locations for the protection of those involved. But literally, I was at that point that I thought, I'm going to die at his hands. And it doesn't have to be that way. And so many people believe it is their fault. I'm so sick and tired of people being so judgmental. Why did you stay? Why haven't you left? They don't know because they haven't lived in it. you think that you can leave and live, but you can't. You have to be able to have a complete plan in place in order to get out. At least I did. You need to know the warning signs. It is kind of almost like a roller coaster where there are better days, and then there are days that are just horrific. And you just have to make sure, because when you do leave, it is the most dangerous time, because your abuser does get heightened, and that's one of the worst things. But you can live and get out of it. You need to look for those red flags, and when you find those red flags, you need to take them very seriously before you get in that relationship, because everybody needs to realize life is too short. Life is beautiful. I don't take 1 minute for granted. I wasn't supposed to survive. My daughter was not supposed to survive. She is thriving. She's amazing. And when you sit there and think about it, I've never once thought for a second that that's his kid, because it's not his kid. This is my kid. And it's taken all this time, but I'm married to the love of my life, who, ironically enough, was my soulmate. And I knew that before my ex, and my ex met him and hated him, like absolutely hated him. We had dated for 4 years and broke up. And then we ended up together now, and he's adopting my daughter, which makes my heart so full. But
That's great to hear. That's really good to hear that there's somebody there that's that's
you
doing
can
it.
move on. Yeah, you can move on. And it's quite hard. It took me so long, but you know what? I did it by myself. And my statement out there is that you don't have to do it by yourself. And that's why I advocate like I do, because I didn't have anyone, and I kept wishing that I did. I didn't have a mom that would hold my hand and say, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this no matter what. If somebody even remotely got near my child, that no. I mean, he was given the right to see her for a couple of days in the very beginning when I had a TPO, a temporary protective order, and we were going after the permanent restraining orders, and he had to be there with a police officer in the room, and he didn't want to see her. He wanted me. And when he would come in, he'd say, let's go for a talk. Okay. And I did, because I didn't want him near my child. They would have had to pry my hands from a door frame before I let him near her again.
The fact that there was sort of even suspicious, you had proof of his
Everything.
of this pedophilia that he had, and
Yes,
the fact that it even got that far. See, I don't know about America, I don't know about the laws, but if that's in Ireland or in England, there is no way, shape, or form a person like that is getting anywhere near a kid. That you have physical evidence. The fact that they got it that far, where he was with a police officer, do you know what I mean? Is crazy. And I'm sorry to go on about that. I'm very, very mind blown. That
yes.
I'm just, there needs to be a change. There has to be a change.
There does. And I just want the women to know that they are worth more than they see themselves for, and try to go back and think of who they used to be, and they can be that way again. Their kids don't deserve to grow up and feel like that. You can make the kids have the life they deserve. You can live your life. You can find that inner light again, because even one star lights up a dark sky.
True. That's a very, very good message. Is there anything else you would like to say?
If there's any questions, I'm afraid to see the comments. I haven't read any. I've made sure not to look at them, I'm sure.
Yeah. I'll have a wee look here. You've covered everything. There's just lots of messages of support.
Thank you. Then come join our Facebook group, because we have a Facebook group called A Contagious Smile, and it's for special needs as well as domestic violence. All we try to do is pay it forward. We're helping ears. Just amazing to see these kids thrive. I advocate for special needs families too. And when you see these beautiful children smile, it makes your whole day better. And I will help each and every one of you the best way that I can. I'm not one of these people that you'll see here and then you won't be able to reach out and talk to me. I will talk with you. I will do everything I can step by step. Just come join. The group is
and we will be working in the future. We'll be working in the future together with promoting sort of talks to do with disabilities and things like that with children, and we'll get you back on, but we'll have a different topic to do with that. That will be good.
So were there any questions at all?
So just lots of messages of support. Crime Scene NE said, shout out to Crime Scene NE. He said, heartbreaking, but watch what you're saying, Ronan. Such a brave woman. Yeah, because I got a wee bit animated in regards to him, and do you know what? I don't care because it's the truth. Let me just have a wee look here. I actually need to get somebody to go through the comments for me to pick these.
If it's negative, I'm happy. I can take it.
Ram Radar said should have had court martial. Definitely. By the looks of it. I'll just go down to the bottom here. No, there's no more questions. Just all messages of support. It's just all everybody's saying. Yeah, Diane Hunter. Yeah, she says, oh, so happy she's found love again. Gives me hope.
Thank you, Diane. Come join over at A Contagious Smile on Facebook. Join the group. Request to join.
So I will put the link for that in the. I didn't know that. Give me the link, and I will put that in the description and the comment section of this video. Any links that you want Victoria put into this, just send them to me on Facebook, and I'll put them in the description and the comment section. So say that again so people can jump over now.
If you go to your Facebook under groups, go to A Contagious Smile, and it states it's for special needs families, but it's also domestic violence. And also, if you guys have a special talent working with kids, or you have a background working with domestic violence, I would love to have you come help as well, because together we can be unstoppable. We got to get this under control. We got to get it to stop.
100%. I totally agree. So, will we end it at that then? Yes. Victoria. Thank you very much for coming on and telling your story. Peace, guys.
Thank you, guys.